Welcome to Public Forum, a community outreach program produced at North Idaho College on the shores of Lake Coeur d'Alene. Featuring guests from around the globe, addressing a wide variety of subjects, Public Forum serves to educate and enlighten. Please join host and moderator, political scientist Tony Stewart, in welcoming today's guest.
I am pleased to welcome you to today's program. We have, as one of our popular topics, authors that come on our program, and some of them are doing novels and fiction, some are doing nonfiction, and we're very pleased to welcome to our program today a very good friend, Christy Wood. And Christy Wood is very active in our community. First of all, she's a sergeant with the Coeur d'Alene Police Department, and she serves on the Board of Education for Coeur d'Alene School District 271, and she's also an elected member of the Board of Trustees at North Idaho College. And in addition to all of those activities, she is a writer, and also she's a gardener and cans wonderful foods. And we've invited her on our program to talk about a book that she has written, and I want to show this to you. It's called The Adventures of Woodville, Oscar Meets the Duchess. Our guest, Christy Wood, has two lovely dogs, and she loves her dogs, and she likes to write about them. And so we're going to talk about that particular book, which is already on the out and can be bought, and she'll tell you about that. But she's just finished a second book that will be out soon, and it's called The Woodville Wedding. Christy, welcome to the program, and this week and next week we look forward to how you got involved in this, and it's just such a lovely story, and welcome to the program.
Well, thank you very much. It's fun to be here.
And if you hear a sound in the background, Oscar's with us. He's sitting there by Christy, a beautiful dog, and this is honoring Oscar as he meets the Duchess. And I want to welcome our regular panelist, Erna Reinhardt, who's Director of Public Relations at North Idaho College, and she'll commence today's questioning.
Thanks, Tony and Christy. Welcome to the show. It's wonderful to have you here. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to become a writer and how that came to be, because I know you're an extremely busy person. You serve on the school district board, you serve on our board, you have a full-time job, you have a family, and somehow you have squeezed in a new hobby of writing a book. So tell us what inspired you to do this.
Well, the story has been kicking around in my head for many years. I just thought it would be fun, a very good diversion. The line of work that I'm in, any kind of diversion that takes you to a happy place is good. So all of the little characters in the book were my pets when I was a child. And except for one, and I've kind of noted that in the book, the skunk. I didn't have a skunk, and so he's a made-up character. But all the others, as a child, I spent a tremendous amount of time with animals, and my parents always let me have pretty much any animal I wanted. Kind of had a little farm, and they were very special to me, and I got a little carried away sometimes with them, and made them little clothes they could wear, and had little stories, little adventures that they would have. And so the story's always kind of been kicking around with me. And a couple of years ago, I took a class at North Idaho College, and it was a literature class. And we have some fabulous instructors here, as you know. And this instructor just really gave me the confidence to start writing, even though I wasn't writing anything near a children's book. It was just the pure pleasure and joy of writing. And so one day I just went home and I sat down and I thought, well, I'm just going to kind of do this. And it isn't that easy. You have to do it and redo it and do it over, and then hope that somebody really would find that kind of fun. And so that's how I got started.
Give us a little bit of a summary of what the book's about.
Well, the dog, Oscar, is the main character, my little pug dog, and he lives at a big, sort of like a farm, and on that farm are all of his friends and many different characters, and like I said, they're the animals that were in my childhood, and he is going to meet his future bride. In this book, there's kind of an arranged marriage, sort of, and so he is going to meet the Duchess, Hannah the Duchess, which is my other pug. And they go through a big adventure. They go through the deep woods, and they meet an ogre, and Oscar is a hero and saves the day, and it has a very happy ending. But along the way, they have quite a bit of fun.
Excellent.
I want to go back before we have you, at some point we'll have you to do some reading from the book, but on the program over the years, we had many authors. I always ask these questions about their writing style and their time, and some authors say they write early in the morning, some will do it at night, and some during the day, and some don't write at all certain weeks, and it's when there's a certain mood that they do their writing. Mm-hmm. As you did this book and also the Woodville Wedding, what type of style you use or periods of time when it's best for you to write?
Well, I do have quite a bit going on from time to time just with all of my other duties in life. So I'm really one of those people that when I have a moment and I'm feeling inspired at that moment, I don't set aside a particular time. But when I do start, I don't stop for hours. I'll stay at it. And so it's really when I have some alone time, finally, just at my house. And
so, or the thoughts are there, and then you just shut everything else out for
I
writing
do,
for a number of hours. Erna did ask something about the idea, how you dealt with this, but I guess nothing intrigues me with writers, in particular if they're dealing with children's books or animals books. How do you decide that you're going to have the characters you have? I mean, is it in your mind like you have an outline before you even start, this is all what the book's going to be about, or does it just unfold as you start writing?
It definitely unfolds. Yeah, you might have a general idea, but it just unfolded, and then some things I would try, I think, well, it didn't work, so I'm going to go a different direction, and but the characters were always easy because I knew them personally. So it was just the adventure I needed to work on.
And you indicated that it was animals that you had known in your childhood, mm-hmm. and you had names for those. You used the same names in the book.
Yes, yeah. Uh-huh.
So it's a kind of almost memorial to your animals.
My babies.
They've gone on to animal heaven, I guess we would say. One more question before I go back to Erna, and that is, in addition to you writing it, you had other people that helped design. I know, if I can have it again for
Absolutely.
Just a minute, and show our audience. In addition, there's a really nice front cover, and then in the book, there's illustrations. You can see that all through this thing. So it's my understanding, although you did the text and the story, mm-hmm. you had assistants to help you with this.
Very much.
Tell me how you chose those and who they were, and how, I guess, when you're writing, you need to have a real good rapport with the other person that's going to fit that story with their part in the illustrations.
And that was critical for me. The pug dog would have just been a stick figure if I were doing the illustrations. But I needed just the perfect person who really had a strong love for animals and knew how to draw. And one day I was looking at District 271 had a writing contest. Actually, the local businesses sponsored it for an advertising week. And there was a wonderful little illustration in there by a local high school student by the name of Mary Reskovich. And she had done it for Senex. And in there was a little goat, little chickens, a cow, all the characters I needed, and they were just precious. They just popped out at you. And I thought, oh, I just have to have her do this book. And fortunately, I knew her father, because he's an English teacher at Lake City High. And so I called up and said, is this your little girl? And he said, it is. And so we met, and there was instant trust. I told her the story, gave her a copy of the story. Turns out she actually lives on a bit of a ranch, has all the same types of animals herself, and a great love for animals. And
so you had those common...
Yeah, she just connected. I said, just give them a little face, and she did.
Here's a good example of one of those, if they can come back to you. How old was she when she did these?
She was 16 when she started.
Yeah, she's very talented, isn't she?
Mm-hmm. And she just graduated from high school.
And now, did she know how many illustrations you wanted, or did she see the text before she did the illustration?
I wrote in the text what I wanted the illustration to be. And
so she followed those.
She did, but she also added a lot of her own flair, and they just turned out adorable.
Yeah. Erna Reinhardt.
Christy, share with us. It sounds like you had quite a few characters in your household growing up that were animals. So share with us what animals you had as a child.
Oh, gosh, I was very fortunate. Well, I had a grandfather who had a stable area in Walla Walla, Washington. He always had animals, and so whenever I'd go visit, I'd come home with something, much to my parents' chagrin sometimes. Because one time I went to visit, and he sent home a goat, which was kind of we lived in the city, so it was a little interesting having a goat in the city. And when we my parents moved out to Hauser Lake, to some property above the lake, I was able then to expand my animal repertoire, and I had a horse, and I had ducks and chickens and rabbits and guinea pigs, anything really besides snakes.
And as a child, would you spend lots of times, you'll have kids that will get a pet and they'll maybe be enamored with that pet for a month or so, and then it kind of wanes,
Yes.
and it becomes the parent that feeds it and cares for it. So were you a little bit different? Did you play with the animals a lot?
Yeah, I had siblings, and they suffered from that. And so, my pets were always a priority. And like I said, I even made little clothes for them. And so, my goat would walk me to the bus stop, and he was very much like a dog. And so, it was a great way to grow up. I really appreciate my parents letting me have that.
When one writes books, my guess is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is probably more described as appealing to children. It's a children's book.
Very much.
What age groups do you think would most enjoy this particular book?
Probably 5 to 11. It depends on the maturity of the child, but I spend a lot of time in the elementary schools locally. We go, and Oscar will go with me, and we'll read the story, and the kids usually... I haven't tried a junior high, so I think it's mostly elementary level.
Yes. Also, as you were developing this, did you pattern after others, or have you read a lot of children's books on animals?
No. I thought it was very important to me to not fall into a trap of maybe plagiarizing or picking something up. So I purposely, and I don't know how smart this was, but I purposely did not read any children's books before I sat down and wrote, which means that there had to be an awful lot of editing. But I just, in my childhood, of course, I was always reading a book, and had several favorites. And so I think what I really liked was a little bit of, I really wanted the innocence to be in the book, because a lot of the things you see today, especially cartoons, I don't see the innocence that was there when I was a child. It's a little more advanced than I would find appealing. And so this is a very innocent adventure. There really isn't any violence, and I see plenty of violence in my other line of work. And so I really tried to just capture that, a happy day at Woodville, a little bit of adventure.
I'm going to have you to read some passages from this, and then we'll go back to Erna, but I'll hand you the book back here again. I want our viewers to get a flavor of your writing, and secondly, some children might be watching the program who would be very much intrigued by some of your stories.
Okay, well...
Now, is there a theme from the beginning to the end, or is it in almost like short stories, different things happening?
Well, no. The adventure just starts off, but it's pretty easy to follow. It's a little lengthy. My second book isn't as lengthy. I wanted there to be character development, but what I've learned from some parents is that they don't want to be up all night reading this book. And so the second book's a little shorter. But I think I'll read the part where they're going through the woods. That's a fun part for the animals. Okay.
And this would be Oscar and
yes.
And the Duchess?
Yes, Oscar, and actually he's going to meet the Duchess. And so he's going with all of the animals, and he has to go through the woods, the dark woods, to escort Hannah through the other side, because they've heard about the legend of the ogre in the woods. And so I will just read a few sentences. Oscar bravely marched on. He did not want to let the others know that he too heard noises that he did not recognize. The large trees swayed as the wind howled around them. Jimmy the skunk was at the rear of the pack. He shivered slightly as they slowly crept along the trail. Sweet Pea, he called out. Sweet Pea, the mother cow of Woodville, had black and white hair and the familiar gold veil around her neck. All the animals loved her, for she had a heart of gold. She replied, Yes, Jimmy? Did you hear that noise? "It sounded like footsteps," said Jimmy. "No, dear, I did not," said Sweet Pea. She could tell Jimmy was frightened. "Climb upon my back, Jimmy, and I shall carry you through the woods." Jimmy scrambled up on Sweet Pea's back, and soon he felt safe and warm. And then they just go off on their adventure, because that's when they run into the ogre later.
Okay.
So,
Erna Reinhardt.
But Christy, you mentioned earlier that the story was in your mind for a while. So describe to us a little bit, share with us that process of getting it onto paper and whether that was easy. Was it more difficult than you expected it to be? How did that happen, and how difficult was that?
yeah, well, I think it was more difficult for me because I don't feel like I'm a natural writer. Everyone loves to share a few stories, but to actually be the caliber of someone who's a published author, their skills are there. It's a lot easier for them. But I would encourage anyone who wants to write a children's book, just do it. It was a lot of fun, and I just sat down and wrote it and rewrote it and ran it by. I made my husband and my son listen to it a lot, and then I might change a passage. But so, did I answer your question? Okay.
You dedicate the book to Dave and Brian. I know who that is.
Yeah.
Dave is your husband and Brian is your adult son.
Yeah.
And you say who love Oscar and Hannah as much as I do. That is your two dogs.
Yeah.
So share with us, one, you said that they had to hear a lot about it.
Yeah.
Did Dave and Brian contribute in any way to any of your ideas as you were doing this?
Well,
critique it?
Brian didn't care for his illustration of him, which is very popular with the kids because he has this bright orange hair in the illustration, and it's really quite cute. That was his only critique. The rest of it, they were pretty good. Brian's an only child, and for years and years and years, we couldn't have a dog, just virtue of where we lived, and we were finally able to get Oscar.
Here is a picture of, I think, what you're talking about. Here's Brian and in the bed, and you have, is that Oscar trying to wake him up there?
Yeah.
And he has the baseball on and the world champions on the wall, and a typical, I guess at this time, maybe a teenager's room.
Yeah.
Although Brian is in college now.
He's in college now, yeah.
Yeah. When you do show it to children or you read to them, is there some parts of this that are more popular than other parts?
Yes. They really like the ogre. They like to hear about what's happening with the ogre. They definitely like the illustrations because they're just so cute, very colorful. And then Oscar, I wasn't sure if Oscar would be a more standout character than Hannah, since they kind of share the story. But Oscar's a big hit. It probably helps that he goes with me and licks their face while I'm reading. And
Hannah doesn't go with you?
No, I don't take both of them. I don't know how I would read it. Yeah.
I live close to you, and you walk a lot. You walk the dogs, and I get to meet both Oscar and Hannah.
Yeah.
And they're pretty lively when they're together.
Yeah.
And another question in relation to this, I think that since you indicated that the young people, the children love the ogre, I think I'll have you read that section too.
Oh, sure.
So some of the children may be watching.
Okay. Find it here. Okay, this is the part in the story where they're going over a bridge. And
now, let's identify who else is going over the bridge.
All of the animals, they've met with Hannah now, and they're going to escort her back through the woods, and they have to go over a bridge. Now, when they originally went over the bridge the first time, the bridge was a little rickety and started to break, but they got across.
But there are several animals other than Oscar. And
yes, the horse, the cow, the goat, the skunk, the chickens, they're all going to escort and bring Hannah back safely through the woods.
It's kind of like Noah's Ark.
Right,
They're all there.
Yeah, and Oscar's leading the pack. So this is where they will meet the ogre. Let's see. Suddenly, one of the logs broke loose, and the carriage wheel fell between a crack in the bridge. Hannah and Jimmy were thrown about the carriage. Jimmy is the skunk. Jimmy landed in the water, but quickly grabbed onto the rear of the carriage and pulled himself back onto it. "Hold on, Hannah," Oscar shouted. "I will save you," because Hannah was teetering over the bridge. I'm kind of paraphrasing here. It'll take me too long. Out of the shadows, Oscar saw something moving toward the carriage. He was stunned by what he saw next. A monster, at least 10 feet in height, climbed out from under the bridge and roared with a deafening sound. He had long, dirty hair the color of moss and big white teeth. There was a strong odor about him. His claws and feet were enormous. That's kind of the part there. Did you want me to continue?
Yeah, continue.
Okay. The monster reached up to the top of the broken bridge. Hannah had been thrown to the outside of the carriage. She was holding onto the window of the door with her little feet dangling over the water. Jimmy, who had just climbed back into the carriage, looked up and saw the monster. His eyes got big and he fainted. Hannah screamed with fright when she saw the monster reaching for her. Oscar scrambled from the log onto the back of the carriage. He reached for Hannah at the same time the monster did. Hannah slipped from his grasp and was whisked off the bridge by the creature. All the animals had been watching from the other side with fright and disbelief. Oscar had been right. There was an ogre in the deep woods, and now he had Hannah.
Well, now, we can't stop there because everybody will know, did Hannah survive? So we have the time, so let's go ahead and read more.
Okay. Let her be, you awful beast, yelled Oscar. The ogre held Hannah close as he climbed out of the water and stood next to the other animals. The animals grasped with fright and huddled closely together. Please, Mr. Ogre, let her go, yelled Sweet Pea. Hannah wiggled in his grip and demanded to be put down. How dare you, she said. The ogre roared a deafening sound once again. He put Hannah down and looked back toward Oscar. The bridge was beginning to fall completely apart. You can kind of tell what happened there.
Yeah.
The ogre heads back and he saves Oscar. There's the illustration of him saving Oscar. And he turns out to be a good ogre. And they all say, you are a nice ogre.
So he helped save them with the collapse of the bridge.
He saves them.
So he was not a monster. He was a